In this video, we will look at dividing a decimal number by a whole number using a base 10 shorthand drawing. The focus of this standard is using models, drawings, and strategies based on place value to compute problems. Here we will take a look at how we can use a base 10 shorthand drawing to divide 1 and 32 hundredths by 3. Before we solve, we want to think about a reasonable quotient. Here, students may reason that 1 and 32 hundredths is being split into 3 equal groups, which means that the quotient will be less than 1 and 32 hundredths. To begin to solve using a base 10 shorthand drawing, I first want to represent the 1 and 32 hundredths. So I'll represent one whole. That's a flat with our base 10 shorthand drawing. Now we will show 3 tenths and 2 hundredths. So that is 1 and 32 hundredths. Now, since I know I'm going to divide that 1 and 32 hundredths into 3 equal groups, I'm just going to draw some circles down here to represent those 3 equal groups. Now what we'll do is think about how this can be split evenly among these 3 groups. Let's first look at the one whole. Since we have just one whole and 3 equal groups, I can tell that I'm not able to give one whole to each group. So I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this whole for 10 tenths. Now I can see that I have 10 tenths plus those 3 other tenths that were already there. So I have 13 tenths. With 13 tenths, I know that I can give some tenths to each of these 3 groups. So I'll go ahead and do that now. At this point, some students may do this just one at a time, distributing the tenths. Some students may use their whole number sense to help them see that with 13 tenths and 3 equal groups, they would be able to give each group 4 tenths, since 4 times 3 is 12, and they have 13 tenths available. Either way of going about solving that is just fine, but I'll go ahead and distribute them just one at a time. So we would see that if we give each group 1 tenth, we could cross out 3 tenths then. We have enough tenths to do that again. So we'll cross out those next 3 tenths that we distributed. We still have 7 tenths left, so we can do this again. Give each of the 3 groups another tenth. And now I see that I'm left with 4 tenths. I remember I have 3 groups to divide this evenly between, so I can give each group another tenth. And now I have just 1 tenth and those 2 hundredths remaining. So I know that with 1 tenth, I'm not able to evenly distribute that and just give that 1 tenth to one of these groups. What I'll have to do instead is ungroup that tenth for 10 hundredths and work with it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So now I can see with those 10 hundredths from that ungrouped tenth and the 2 hundredths that we had before, we now have a total of 12 hundredths. Same thinking here, students could use their whole number sense and recognize that 3 times 4 is 12. So with 12 hundredths and 3 equal groups, they would be able to give each group 4 hundredths. If that's not something that works for students, they could also distribute them one at a time, which is what I'll do. So let's see, if we give each group 1 hundredth, can cross out 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. I see that I have enough hundredths to keep going, so I'll give each group another hundredth. Oops. If I give each group 1 hundredth, let's go ahead and cross out that we used 3 hundredths there. I know that I have enough hundredths to give each group another hundredth. Still, I have 6 hundredths remaining, so I can keep going, give each group another hundredth. And I have 3 hundredths left and 3 groups, so I can go ahead and distribute another hundredth to each group. And now that we have evenly distributed the 1 and 32 hundredths among the 3 groups, we just need to go back and determine our quotient by counting how much is in each group. So I can see that in each group there are 4 tenths and 4 hundredths. That's true for each of these 3 groups. So we have distributed that equally. And I know that 4 tenths and 4 hundredths, that gives me 44 hundredths. So I see that I have 44 hundredths in each of these 3 groups. And so I can see that 1 and 32 hundredths divided by 3 is 44 hundredths. And before we started to model to solve, we had thought about the fact that our quotient would definitely be less than 1 and 32 hundredths since that amount was being split into 3 equal groups. 44 hundredths is less than 1 and 32 hundredths, so I know this answer is reasonable. And again, this is how we can divide a decimal by a whole number using a base 10 shorthand drawing.